Was excited this past Saturday to wrap up, obviously, our 15 practices. I thought the guys made some nice strides. Obviously, always want to be better, but I couldn't be happier with the progress, especially some of our players that didn't play a lot last year, the way they came along, came out of it relatively injury-free. Discovered a few guys we didn't know we had and developed the others. Really like the way our coaches, especially our new addition on the defense side of the ball, were able to kind of jump into what we were doing and clear things up pretty good. So excited about the coming summer, and the transition to the NCAA is going to allow us to meet with our players, and I think that'll be a benefit for a program like ours that's trying to come up from the bottom and get to a place of in the SEC that we're comfortable being at.
Thanks, Coach. Your first question will come from Matthew Stevens of the Commercial Dispatch.
I'm just curious as to what you thought of the non-conference portion of what was agreed upon on Sunday. You guys at Arkansas are going to be taken care of with ECU and Michigan and Texas, et cetera, for years to come, but it seemed like the league made an emphasis on strength of schedule out of the league.
Yeah, I think, well, first it gives a great insight for Jeff. Our AD, I think, has put the wheels in motion to get that accomplished, thinking that that's where it was going to go, and obviously it did this past weekend, but it was kind of the model I began to adapt to my previous institution, was taking the 4 non-conference game, playing one BCS school that was something you could go home and home, have some unique matchups for the fan base, and I couldn't be more excited. You know, as a head coach, we just played the schedule. It's been well documented. We had a tremendously tough schedule last year before the season started, and this year we've been voted #1 toughest schedule in the country, and it's something we'll wrap our arms around and hug it up and kiss it and make it as good as we possibly can.
Next question comes from Tom Murphy from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
Hey, Brett, I was going to ask you, what are the issues that you were most pleased with that happened in spring, and then some things that you know you're going to need to work on over the summer?
You know, Tom, I think defensively, first and foremost, just to try and clean up our communication and make our guys play faster. Without a doubt, that happened in my mind. I think some of the things you saw on Saturday in the spring game, result of our defensive players being on the same page with their coaches, being able to play extremely fast and being able to play physical. On the flip side, offensively, I think we wanted to show our #1 offense what they need to do to play together and have success. You know, I take a game last year, for instance, against South Carolina. We got beat 52-7, yet we averaged 9 yards per rush, and to have that much of a dramatic score difference compared to what we were doing when we want to rush the football. They averaged a little over 5, we averaged 9, but we had 3 turnovers and they had 1, and it just goes to show you the winning formula for success, especially here at Arkansas. You have to add the right numbers together to get the right math, and when you're subtracting numbers and turnovers and forced penalties and stuff like that, unforced penalties, it's not going to work. So I think our guys understand that better.
And you touched on briefly in your opening about having contact with the players over the summer. How does that impact you guys? And so you take it away from strength and conditioning time, though?
Well, no, one of the first things I did when this rule came into effect is Ben Herbert and I sat down and looked how we could streamline what he was doing, so that it basically is an 8-hour rule. You can use you can use 2 hours of it at max for what we're going to do in a classroom. We won't use that number. We're going to use a formula of 7-to-1. And that's going to be only during certain weeks. We'll use it during the first 3 weeks when our coaches are on campus, allow our players to interact with coaches for two meetings during the course of the week that allows us to maximize both the strength room and the classroom on the football field. So it's something that we've really put a lot of time and effort into, and something I'm very excited to.
Next question comes from Bob Holt of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
Hey, Brett, how you doing?
Hey, Bob. Good, man.
What was your reaction to the Sunday announcement about the SEC keeping the schedule the same?
Well, it was an announcement, but I think even as a head coach, just judging what I did, I met with Chancellor Gerhardt and Jeff Long. One of the things that came out of our SEC meetings was Commissioner Slive had told us to visit with those people, so I followed through with his direction, and it really wasn't a surprise. I think we were all on the same board of the options that were provided. That seemed to make the most sense for us to continue the success, not only here at Arkansas, but SEC, to give us the best chance to win and to be a factor maybe in the world of college football bigger than we have been. So it seemed to be a pretty united consensus, but obviously the details and the formality had to go through.
I guess I'll smile. We know that you weren't too thrilled about it, but do you think 9 SEC games just would have been too much?
Well, I think, I go back to what I've learned throughout my life, and, a wise man once said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I know that I came to this league with the expectation of, having a better opportunity to put ourselves in a position when the college football playoffs came about to get to those 4 spots. The SEC several times looked as though that they had not only, 1, 2, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 teams that could have just as much say in that right as anybody in the world of college football. And even after I was leaving Wisconsin in my years there, and when we sat in those conference meetings, it was all about what can we do to, catch up with, what was going on in the SEC, and I think that kind of proves itself. I mean, I think our 8-game format in the SEC, and all of my years in this profession and all of my years as a head coach, there is no doubt in my mind that the 8 games we played last year on our conference schedule, and just on paper, the 8 games that we have scheduled for this year, I don't care if other conferences play 10 games. It's not going to be to the magnitude of what this possibly is for the SEC.
Next question comes from Nate Allen.
Any aspect of this team that you feel a whole lot better about after the beginning, and also any particular players, the same thing you feel a whole lot better about since spring ball ended?
Nate, I just missed the first part of your question. I got to cut off.
First was any aspect of the team that, after spring ball you feel a whole lot better about than you did going in.
And then as players as well.
Right.
Yeah, Nate, I think without a doubt the DB position, and then specifically I think corner play made a huge jump. I just really feel those guys from the first practice to where we are at the end of spring ball were just a huge turnaround into what I saw from fall games to spring practice. They're playing with much more confidence. Their attitude and demeanor, just taking the field, the way they handled everything was night and day. And I think that's a great compliment to our defenses on what they did, in particular Ross Smith and Clay Jennings. And I tell you what, I think Randy had a nice say in that as well, because he kind of knew a little bit of what was going on in the past. And that jumped out to me. I think some of the offensive struggles, in particular in the spring game, were directly attributed to those guys playing better on defense. I would say overall, players that made a huge jump. I know you didn't get a chance to see him. Tevin Mitchell at that position, Jared Collins, Will Hines, Carol Washington probably made the biggest jump as anybody. I think also on the defense side of the ball, Martrell Spate made some huge strides at the will linebacker position. Very excited to see him continue to grow. I think on offense, in particular, the quarterback Brandon Allen made a really nice. Just his overall body of work in the spring was very, very pleasing to me as a head coach, and I think our coaches, and I think the wide receiver, just the overall performance of those guys catching the ball, in addition to A.J. Derby, were a nice surprise. And then obviously a very easy one to see is the development of Corliss Marshall at tailback was very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question is from Brandon Marcello of the Alabama Media Group.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Brandon.
I was just wondering, I was reading about how you guys spent, I guess, a little bit of time being able to prepare for some non-conference opponents, including, and then even a season opener against against Auburn, excuse me. Can you tell me a little bit about what you were able to accomplish there, and just what you think about opening the season against a team that was in the DC sphere?
No, Brandon, I guess I said that in our players. I think it's more specific to what I've learned as a head coach because of the style of offense that we run. When we play opponents like Auburn, like we play at Texas Tech, we're playing Northern Illinois at the beginning part of the season, what we really needed to do is work the type of offenses they run because it's so dramatically different from what our offense runs. I remember early on as a head coach, I ignored quarterback run game and the spread offenses, and we didn't fare for a couple of years as well as we should have. So it wasn't so much preparation against Auburn, Texas Tech, and Northern Illinois. More of it was preparation against the unique offense that they bring that's different than ours. As far as playing Auburn, I don't think we could ask for a better scenario to play, a team that accomplished very, very well coached football team with a lot of really good players back, to open it up on the SEC network, you know, and to have all of that going for us in one direction is a very, very positive thing.
I know you've obviously expressed concern about player safety going against some up-tempo offenses. How do you combat that when you're trying to practice against up-tempo offenses in your own practice?
Two things. You try to simulate the speed. We actually use two huddles to go against our defense and make sure that they understand the pace of play that's coming at them. Obviously, if we see any potential situations that could be harmful to our players because we're at practice, we can stop it. So it's really not the same in regards to game-like situations. But I think that gives us the biggest teaching tool we can have. And then the only thing that I would say about pace of play, I actually love playing against pace of play from the standpoint it's such a dramatic difference in style to what we do. That has been my experience in the past. When you get a team that's able to execute what you ask them to do, it can be very, very frustrating for that type of opponent to play against us. I made reference. I know everybody made some references to Arizona in particular, and Rich Rod. We went against him head-to-head when I was at Wisconsin. He was at Michigan, and one of the great things we were able to do is establish the play that we wanted to play, and that really affected everything that they could do. We ran the ball, I believe, every time in the second half except for one time just to keep the ball out of their hands, and it was a pretty decisive defeat. So I think one thing that I get excited about as a head coach is we're building to a place where we're going to be able to of what we train year round to be in effect offense, defense, special teams, and then it's just a difference in philosophy.